Alright guys, welcome back to F1 News. Mercedes have confirmed that in addition to being very optimistic about their upcoming W15, Lewis Hamilton, they also believe, is in the position still to be motivated and dedicated enough to have what it takes to take down Max Verstappen and Red Bull this season. Does that apply to other drivers on the grid? Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. First of all, just to address the elephant in the room somewhat, in a hotel tonight, that is because I'm going away to Boston for basically the next week or so with a Call of Duty event, which is what I do on the main channel. A few of you guys are probably aware of that one. So usually last year that would mean that I wouldn't be able to do videos in this channel so much. I'm going to try and find a way to do it anyway this year. And look, even though I will be back by the time all the car launches start coming around, so I'm sure there'll be some news this week. I'll do my best to get you guys the content out as and when it is possible. I'll do my best. But there's plenty to dive into today. Tomorrow I'll be on a flight, by the way, so probably tomorrow's video either won't exist or it will be very late in the evening by the time I get to the US. But this is a big story that will probably be confirmed tomorrow morning. The Madrid Grand Prix is apparently going to be happening now. As frustrating as that might be to those of us who actually like real Formula 1 circuits, we don't have too many of them left because the rumour has it that Barcelona is gone and Madrid is coming in. We saw rumours as to what the circuit might be for this quite a while ago now. It didn't look great, I'm going to be perfectly honest, but now we have these spotted today where we see the F1 logo, welcome back to Madrid. We see, as of a few hours ago, 17 hours, 30 odd minutes until it's apparently going to get launched. And even there's a bus here coming soon to Madrid with what is basically an F1 car with a halo on the side. So I think they've made it relatively clear enough. F1 to Madrid is happening. Probably that means that the Barcelona Grand Prix, after having fixed the track with this, getting rid of that stupid chicane. No, it's a great track, I think, at least. I love Barcelona personally, but I know that it's not maybe so well-liked. But I think that it will be definitely more well-liked in memory than Madrid will be, based on the rumours that we saw around what the track could look like, but also just the fact in general that another actual racetrack is probably going to disappear in favour of a street circuit. So stay tuned for that news, but apparently that's going to be coming tomorrow. Lots of progress, though, on teams updating their new cars for the upcoming season. Haas have confirmed it ain't looking so good for them. Even it was Komatsu who said, the new team boss, now that Steiner's gone and basically fired from the team, that it's embarrassing the way they were last season. And even rumour has it that their Haas upgrades last year at Kota were so bad in terms of the way they failed that it's actually pushed back their 2024 development rate. So last year's Kota upgrades, which they put like everything in the kitchen sink into getting right, weren't right, and therefore their development for this year's car is therefore late. So there was maybe a big time feeling behind the scenes that it wasn't looking so good at Haas under Steiner's leadership, so they've put Komatsu in charge. He has a major job on his hands, as far as I'm concerned, to get this team anywhere near respectable for the next season with respect to the pace of the other teams around them. Maybe they can compete with Stake F1 team, but apart from that, I think it's going to be tough. Big rumours, though, emerging as well on what's going on with Ferrari lately. Their 676 is what the project has been called. That's probably not what the car's actually going to be named, but there's lots of talk about, basically a hybrid concept. They clearly need to take some ideas from Red Bull, as does everybody, but they don't want to take everything from Red Bull and just, make literally a Red Bull, because if they do that, they will be behind. Red Bull are going to make progress. You can't afford to do it. You might try in the second year, theoretically, of the development cycle, thinking that you can then catch up over time. But the reality is, if you want to win championships, that's never a strategy that's going to work. You've got to do some combination of the both. That is apparently what Ferrari are going for here. And there's some elements where they're keeping their own ideas. There's some areas where they're copying the Red Bull ideas. So this, you guys can see the back of the bonnet here. It's kind of remarkable how different, really, from the rear, the Red Bull and the Ferrari looked last season. You guys can see the sweeping bodywork of the Ferrari compared to the very wide rear end of the Red Bull, and this wider air vent is what's known as the tray, apparently, according to what people define as that kind of Red Bull concept on this one. It's been the general perception of the last couple of years. That's the way you should go. Most other teams have done something similar. Ferrari didn't until now. Rumour has it that as a result of this, Ferrari and probably Haas as well will take a different approach with the rear of their car. This is quite an important area as well. Of course, every part is important, but there's always lots to talk about how that Red Bull are able to generate more straight line speed from the design at the back, and well, basically the car is so slippery in a straight line because of the way it's designed near the rear, at least compared to a Mercedes, for example, when the gearbox housing in the Mercedes, because it had to be bigger to accommodate for the zero pods, was less optimal and therefore more draggy at the rear. So the Red Bull might be wider at the rear, but it's still very slippery at the rear of the car compared to, let's say, the Mercedes. The Ferrari was quick in a straight line last year, but they think there's other benefits to be gained from exactly this, and even he goes on to confirm to Kessa that, yeah, the bonnet will be elongated and widened around the exhaust like a sort of bazooka to eliminate heat, which of course in 2022 was a bit of a problem for Ferrari with some of the engine issues they had, and even, you know, the most recent season we have seen various engine issues up and down the grid with overheating that can certainly occur. Teams, I think, were majorly concerned in Qatar, but of course, you know, graters like that, they open all the cooling they possibly can, but it was the drivers that were suffering more in Qatar than the cars ended up doing. But that's not just like, they're not going to copy everything. There's a lot of talk about there's going to be a technical compromise. Some of last year's efficiency will be sacrificed, because last year Ferrari chased hard straight line speed, and they achieved that performance advantage to some degree. They were pretty much as quick as a Red Bull in a straight line. Leclerc at, Las Vegas was a good example of that, certainly on the straight, and there were other Grand Prix as well. But, you know, it's not the be-all and end-all, right, going fast in a straight line, and apparently Ferrari realised that, sure, they might have to sacrifice some of that gain just to get back what they want to have elsewhere. But there will be other notable changes. There's also especially talk about around the halo. There's some interesting ideas that the engineers at Ferrari have come up with around the halo to try and make it work better from an aero perspective, not from a cooling perspective. So that's pretty interesting. I guess we'll have to stay tuned on what that's going to look like. But yeah, Ferrari are cooking something up, but it's going to be what we believe is some sort of hybrid concept between what Red Bull have had for the last couple of years and what Maranello have come up with themselves. And you'd imagine many of the cars that are theoretically going to compete at the top of the grid have a pretty similar idea. McLaren already, though, took a fair few ideas from Red Bull the most recent season. Their car in some ways is rather similar. Even McLaren said this, that like, our car is kind of similar in some ways to the Red Bull. Wherever we are going to be good, they're going to be even better. That was the problem really for McLaren last year, that any track within reason that they were going to be very strong at, the Red Bull, because of the similar design concept in some ways with the suspension, these other factors, the Red Bull was also stronger, if not, you know, obviously stronger than them. The only exception, of course, been Singapore, which was just a bad weekend for Red Bull all around. But everywhere else, then the McLaren was great. The Red Bull was just even better. So that's a problem for them. They'll have to solve that. They believe that they can. But they've also said that the car, as it has been for several years now, McLaren, is somewhat quirky, difficult to drive. I think that's been something that, Ricciardo massively struggled with during 2022. And even in previous seasons to that, the car has been known to often be on a bit of a knife edge. Even Norris, as talented as he is, hasn't always had the easiest time controlling it. At the end of the most recent season, lots of qualifying mistakes from Norris, and sure, he blames himself, and maybe part of that is for good reason. But McLaren say, look, our car again is a bit tricky to drive under braking, these other conditions. And McLaren say that's not exactly going to go away anytime soon. Like, they're obviously going to try and resolve those issues, but they're not going to be able to fix it overnight. And they say that it's probably going to be a few months away before they can, you know, make their car handle as nicely as a Red Bull. So, you know, maybe it's as fast though. And then of course it's down to the drivers as to whether you can capitalize on that. But confidence translates often into speed. And we've seen that discussed with Lewis Hamilton, especially over the last couple of seasons or so. So McLaren are confident they can compete. Mercedes also are confident they can compete. Toto Wolff said the other day, when the regulations changed in 22, we interpreted them in a very conservative way. We've seen other teams doing it differently. So watch this space. I think it's going to be very different in 2024. We know that Toto Wolff has extended his contract for another 3 years. We know that James Allison, technical director, extended his contract long term. We don't know, probably until at least 2026 to work on the changes to the regulations then. And then Lewis Hamilton, another couple of years on his deal. I doubt that he's going to disappear before 2026 unless he wins a title in the next 2 years, which is possible, but of course as it stands still relatively unlikely. The question always is with guys like Hamilton though, and also guys like Alonso, because as far as I'm concerned, those are the two drivers that in an equal car, shall we say, to Verstappen, would have the best chance, in my opinion. Obviously, people can debate the likes of Leclerc and Russell and Norris and even potentially Piastri. But I think in terms of experience and actually being able to beat Verstappen over the course of a season, I would probably say Hamilton and Alonso still have the most chance. But it's not just that those guys are getting older, but it's also, are they as motivated as they once were? Like, are they as dedicated to the game as they used to be when they, you know, were in the early days, let's say significantly younger, maybe not as many a time world champion. Like if Hamilton was on 6 titles and he was chasing the 7th to tie the record, maybe that's even more motivating than to get the 8th. I don't know, you guys probably see it one way or the other, because once you've tied the record, it's like, okay, well, if I have to share the record with Schumacher, it's whatever. Obviously, you want it for yourself, but it's probably better to be 7/6 rather than, 8/7, potentially. Obviously, that's a matter for debate, but that's been the question with Hamilton, because unfortunately, Alonso isn't really going to have the car. That's just the reality of the situation with Aston Martin. It's, they're not talking a big game as they did last year, so it's just unlikely that Aston Martin are going to be in a great position, especially the trajectory, of course, from last season. So the question has been to Mercedes, right, is Hamilton good enough anymore? Is he dedicated enough? Because I don't think the talent's gone away. Maybe in qualifying, he's lacking like that little cutting edge that he had, obviously qualifying master, let's say, 2018, seasons like that when Hamilton was absolutely prime performance, and even, 2021 Qatar Grand Prix of that qualifying were spectacular. So Hamilton's still got it, but has he lost a little edge in qualifying over the last couple of years? Possibly yes. Is his race pace still as good as ever? Probably yes. So I don't really think it's a question with talent here. It's more so a question of, is he dedicated enough? Is he really ready to go and there for the fight again? Because Verstappen's going to be up for it, the lion, whatever you want to say. He's definitely going to be up for it. And whether anybody else can really take the fight to him is also a matter of like motivation and dedication as much as it is actual raw skill and, of course, car performance, which is the most important factor of them all. So Mercedes are talking a big game about their W15, getting rid of the spiteful rear ends and improving it somewhat. But James Allison goes on to say to Autosport that I think you'd struggle to find a driver anywhere in the grid that wasn't motivated. I think that sort of comes with the territory, and generally speaking, the more success the drivers have had, the more inescapable the compulsive need to win is. In Lewis's case, it's a core part of who he is, so there's no doubt about his motivation to get back to winning ways. Whether or not he can do that will be in our hands, basically the hands of the equipment we've given him, rather than, than in his own hands. He's always had the ability. So yeah, James Allison says there's no question of motivation with Lewis, of dedication. To be fair, I think that's relatively clear with the way that Hamilton talks about getting back to the top and doing it with Mercedes, getting the, the 8th world title, of course. That is the plan. In addition to the fact that he has signs that, couple of years extension with the team, you've got Toto Wolff talking about how, yep, he wants to get that title with Lewis, not even mentioning George Russell in the same sentence. But look, they've both got a job to do. To be fair, at this point in the winter, we know that Hamilton apparently was having multiple meetings with the team, keeping up to date with them, how's the progress going, trying to push them in certain directions. Russell was maybe doing less of that, but, he was in the simulator the other day doing some work, and at this point in the season, it's really about just, being in good physical condition, making sure they're mentally prepared, and just stay in touch with our successes and failures as we're going through hoops of getting the car specified, etc., etc. Now they're in kind of like an observing role. But people look at this both ways, right? Because, sure, Hamilton's definitely motivated. People always say, oh, well, here goes Lewis again. He's off to some fashion show or whatever. This was some Dior event that Lewis was at this week. And I do see some talk from people saying, oh, like Hamilton, his head's not in the game, like, he's doing all these other things. But yeah, that's just part of who Hamilton is as a person. He's done this for years, even while he was having a lot of success. I'm not really sure that it means anything, really. And obviously, it's not like the other drivers don't do anything either. They're up to all sorts of stuff, such as skiing with George Russell the other day. People were wondering, actually, on this one, whether Russell actually did go skiing, because we've seen that for certain drivers, maybe even Russell included, there's something in the contract that says you can't ski because you might get injured and that'd be bad, which is true. So, and Russell's not wearing the same ski gear that Seb is, but then again, I mean, like you could see George skiing in this, I think. Like that's just his kind of low-level Bond villain-esque outfit that he's got going on here. And to be fair, Verstappen himself admits that it's not going to last forever, right? He's going to have a challenge, possibly this season, hopefully the season after that, if not this season, and then 2026 could be an entirely different story. And as Max says, it can't always be like this. I know that full well. This season, the season we've just had, is probably the most dominant single season performance, best in F1 in terms of stats. I think I just have to manage expectations because, he can't expect to win another 19 races. But then again, next year there's 24 Grand Prix. So maybe there's a chance to actually better that if the Red Bull RB20 or the DM01, as some people are rumored it's going to be called after Dietrich Mateschitz, actually comes true. Just one final thing to close up with. I know this is doing the rounds over the last couple of days. So Laguna Seca, of course, legendary racetrack in California, is under threat from the Highway 68 Coalition, a group of nearby property owners that basically want to stop racing because it's noisy, doesn't abide by environmental ordinances, stuff like this. So this on the surface sounds like a classic, like, NIMBY or whatever, right? Like not in my backyard type thing, which is obviously outrageous. But the reality is that this track was there before a lot of these people, before these houses were even built. So I'm not really sure that on the surface level it looks like that. But on the underlying level, I know many people have said said that it's actually more about the land here. So the property owners aren't exactly suing to try and get the racetrack shut down, so because it's noisy, and there's already not that many days of racing there anyway. I think they're restricted to like 30 days of racing a year at Laguna Seca anyway, just because of those type of issues. But maybe the idea is, if, you know, these people that own the properties could get it shut down, then that land would then become available, and, you know, there's all these other things. Hopefully that doesn't even come anywhere close to happening. But look, when the lawyers are involved, and this type of stuff has happened before on lower levels, maybe on a slightly more local level, you would hope that at least something like the Laguna Seca is not going to be going anywhere, but maybe you can't fully guarantee that, unfortunately. Even Alex Palou, of course, current IndyCar champion, they race at Laguna Seca every year, at least for the time being, has mentioned that realistically, him getting a chance in F1 is probably not going to happen now. There were rumours that he could have been linked to AlphaTauri or potentially even to Williams. That never happened, and he's 27 now. He's killing it in IndyCar, no doubt. He's kind of was at least part of that kind of McLaren program. All sorts of drama legally behind the scenes with Alex Palou that's been going on there. But also Pato Ward is in the same boat. But Pato's like 24, so he can wait around. I know this was an interesting quote doing the rounds, because Palou said that basically, I'm too old to wait around and see if somebody gets hurt, whereas Pato can just wait for somebody to get hurt, which is, you know, it sounds harsh on the surface, but maybe what he's saying is kind of true, that, look, you need someone to get injured or for someone to, you know, get kicked out or unable to race for some reason to get a chance at McLaren, right? Because realistically, they've got their driver pairing, they're very happy with it. So for Palou, he's like, okay, probably F1's not going to happen for me, so he'll keep doing what he's doing and having the success that he's having over in IndyCar. But if everyone's interested in your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below, hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.